Hello and welcome to another episode of TechCircle Dialogues. I am Vignesh Anantraj. Today I have with me Mary Jo Schrade. She is the Assistant General Counsel and Regional Lead of Microsoft Digital Crimes Unit at Asia. In her role, Mary is in charge of supervising the initiatives, programs and strategies within Microsoft which are related to preventing and disrupting organized cybercrime and privacy and online tech support scams. For this discussion, Mary will shed light on how cybersecurity has changed owing to the work from home situation and the steps and strategies that companies and employees can take to stay safe online during the ongoing pandemic and even after. Now, let us delve right into the conversation. So, Mary, if I could just start out by asking, in the entire situation, what has Microsoft noticed over the past two months when it comes to cybersecurity? What changes are you noticing?
Some of the things that we've seen have been that the kinds of things that you're used to having available to you in the office are not available to you at home. So not everyone gets a laptop that they can take home from the office to work on at home. And so people are having to use other devices. This in itself can pose risks to them and to the information that they're sending that relates to their work, because they may not have all of the same security measures that a computer in the office would have, having been overseen by their IT department. I would say that layered on top of that, another issue that we see is just that this whole situation with coronavirus and all of the fear and concerns that people have for their friends and family and community has made people more susceptible to clicking on phishing links and things like that, just because they're trying to learn more information, and the criminals know that people are worried and concerned, so they take advantage of that in trying to lure people into clicking on attachments and things like that.
In terms of numbers, what percentage of increase in phishing attacks have you noticed? Some reports state that there's been a 666% increase in phishing attacks. And also the main medium through which this happens is through emails. In your blog post, you've written that 91% of such phishing scams start through emails. So how can it be mitigated? Let's first talk from the employee's perspective. What can the employee do?
So I think the first thing is to really look carefully at emails that you receive. And it is true that 91% of the phishing and cyber attacks begin with an email, and that's because that's an easy way to get into someone's system if they click on an attachment. This can be also true in the cases of scams that you've probably heard about, where businesses are told that they need to send money quickly to pay some bill that's overdue or something like that. There are issues that can be mitigated, that they can actually keep those accidental payments to criminals from happening by putting in place a process that they use anytime something like that comes up, that might involve just calling someone on their cell phone or sending them a text message on the cell phone separate from your computer. So I think that the educational component is really important. Employers should remind people regularly just to keep it front of mind for them. And then employees themselves should really be vigilant at looking carefully at emails they receive, and don't click on attachments that you receive or links in messages unless you're positive that it's something legitimate. And that would be a very narrow case of ones for which you're sure of that.
Talking in terms of enterprises, Mary, say a CIO who heads a company which is more than 1,000 employees in size, and within, say, a span of 4 or 5 days, he or she is forced to adapt to the work from home situation. So from Microsoft's perspective and so much experience in cybersecurity, what are the top 3 or 5 steps that he or she needs to take in order to take forward the strategy?
The first thing that a CIO should do in that case, if it hasn't already happened, would be to turn on multi-factor authentication. So that's the single best thing that can be done to improve security for employees working from home. So that would be the number one thing that would ensure that there's an extra safety step in place. Communicating, as we talked about previously when we were talking about beware of phishing scams and things like that, regular communication about cyber risks and threats can help keep that front of mind. And so that's something that I would say is important for everyone to do in connection with this work from home situation. Finally, I would say that having a dedicated platform that you use for your employee communications.
So how would a CIO or an employee come to know whether, so Mary, is there a difference that you see between the Indian Asian markets as compared to the Europe and the Africas and the Americas? Is there a difference in the security problems that could be faced in the APAC region as compared to others?
Yes, there is a difference, and I would say the common denominator among the countries that have biggest cybersecurity issues would be two things. One would be the use of software that's been downloaded from suspicious sources, really because you can't be sure what is in the code. And so when we've done analysis of the software that people were able to download Microsoft software for free or for a big discount, for example, when we analyzed the code, we found that the vast majority of those instances had unwanted code that was not part of Microsoft's code that was inserted into what they were downloading. So that makes them more vulnerable, and it makes it riskier for them in terms of cybersecurity. And then the second thing is infrequent patching. And this really pertains to people who are running their own computers with software that they obtain. So not Office 365 or a cloud app, but just on-premise software. When we see people with those types of computers, we frequently see that they get infected with malware because they don't patch and they don't bring the latest security measures to their computers by using things like Windows Defender and things like that. So those would be the two factors that cause one market to be more infected and have more cybersecurity issues than other markets do.
So, Mary, are there any specific sectors or business functions that you feel are like more vulnerable in this situation? Say the BFSIs and other high-risk businesses. So, how can they keep themselves safe, and what are these sectors?
The criminal networks are going to pursue the most lucrative customers they can, and that will be making money either in a very narrow spear phishing targeted way, so they're just going after one company or one person, or it might be very broad. So if I send something to 1 million people and I'm trying to get them to click on a link and I would get paid if they did that, I can actually make a lot of money by just randomly targeting people and waiting for people to click. So I would say when it comes to spear phishing, the most vulnerable companies are the companies that have something of value for criminals. So it might be money, or it could be intellectual property. It could be information. For example, if they wanted to get personal information to sell on a marketplace, that might be any business that collects personal information from people that would be a valuable target for that particular criminal.
Mary, apart from spear phishing and trying to get data through emails, what are the types of threats should the common person be aware of in this situation?
I think that the main threat for an average person just using their at-home computer would be malware that's intended to steal some sort of information or take advantage of their computer in some way. And so for those individuals, I think that being really careful with your passwords, even individuals can set up two-factor authentication. If you set that up, it's safer for you. Individuals can look at their router. I mean, a router could also be something that would prove dangerous and could be leveraged by criminal networks. So instead of leaving the default password on your router, change the password and do updates on your router when you receive a notification to do that. So those are the kinds of things that an individual could do to make themselves more secure.
Great, Mary. So finally, Mary, can you talk about the Microsoft multi-layer defense system and how it's being effective for you guys, and how can enterprises and other companies also adopt something similar to this?
So the benefit of the Microsoft multi-layer defense system is that other companies don't have to adopt anything new. They can benefit from it just by being customers of Microsoft and basically buying licenses for the system. So we have a lot of information online, but basically the system itself comprises the machine learning, the detonation, signal sharing, using these mechanisms to detect and shut down attacks before they can even reach your inbox. So when you open an attachment, it opens it in isolation through a virtual machine and not on your machine. So if there's something dangerous, it won't harm your machine. And as I mentioned previously, once a file or URL is identified as malicious, the information is shared across Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection and other services to provide that benefit from that detection for other customers. So sharing those signals across the various entities that are defending our customers would benefit any PC user with Windows Defender, even if they're not using a Microsoft email service.
So finally, Mary, if you have to give out the 3 golden rules for staying safe during this work from home situation, what would it be?
Keep up to date with patching. Don't click on links unless you are sure of where they came from, and put in place multi-factor authentication.
Great, Mary. Mary, thank you so much for talking to TechCircle. Those were some really critical insights, and I'm sure that it will be very helpful for our audience.
Thank you for your time, Vignesh.